The sky shattered like cheap glass. A storm of purple fire rained upon the ruins of West City. Goten spat a mouthful of blood onto the smoking asphalt. The sky fractured. Purple lightning struck the asphalt. West City burned. Goten wiped blood from his chin. Smoke filled his lungs. He stared upward. The god of destruction floated above the ruins. Beerus did not smile. He raised a single finger. A shockwave leveled the remaining skyscrapers. Concrete rained down. Goku slammed into the crater. His Super Saiyan blue aura shattered. Vegeta crashed beside him. Blood pooled beneath the Saiyan prince. Goten took a step back. His boots crushed broken glass. The timeline had shifted. Whis stood on a floating spire. The angel observed the chaos. His staff hummed with temporal energy. An anomaly existed here. Beerus descended. Gravity amplified around him. The rubble turned to dust. Goten struggled to breathe. The pressure flattened the oxygen. Beerus stopped 10 feet away. His golden eyes locked onto the half-Saiyan. The god spoke no words. He simply extended his hand. Purple energy gathered in his palm. A Hakai sphere materialized. The temperature plummeted. Frost covered the burning debris. Goten looked at his father. Goku did not move. He looked at Vegeta. The prince was unconscious. Panic gripped Goten's chest. His heart hammered against his ribs. He clenched his fists. His knuckles turned white. He refused to die on his knees. A scream tore from his throat. Gold light erupted from his core. His hair spiked upward. The Super Saiyan aura ignited. It pushed back the darkness. The golden light flickered in the purple storm. Beerus tilted his head. The god found this amusing. He lowered his hand slightly. The Hakai sphere hummed. Goten dashed forward. He left a crater in the dirt. He threw a right hook. Beerus caught the fist. The impact cracked the tectonic plate. A fissure ripped through the city. Goten threw a left jab. Beerus dodged. The god kneed Goten in the stomach. Saliva flew from Goten's mouth. His eyes bulged. He folded over. Beerus hammered a fist into his back. Goten plummeted. He smashed through the bedrock. Darkness swallowed him. The earth groaned. Goten lay in the subterranean blackness. His spine throbbed. He forced his eyes open. Dirt fell on his face. He pushed himself up. His arms trembled. The golden aura flared again. He launched himself out of the pit. He broke the surface. He hovered in the air. His clothes were torn. Blood dripped from his forehead. Beerus waited above. The god crossed his arms. The purple sphere remained in his grip. Goten fired a volley of ki blasts. Yellow energy cascaded through the sky. Beerus did not blink. The blasts evaporated against his skin. Smoke obscured the god's face. Goten charged a Kamehameha. Blue light gathered between his palms. The energy illuminated the ruins. He thrust his hands forward. A massive beam tore across the battlefield. The attack engulfed Beerus. The light blinded Goten. A loud explosion rocked the atmosphere. The smoke cleared. Beerus stood completely untouched. The god brushed dust from his shoulder. Goten dropped his arms. Despair clawed at his mind. The power gap defied calculation. He was fighting a living force of nature. Beerus vanished. He reappeared behind Goten. The god flicked his finger. The strike hit Goten's neck. The boy spun through the air. He crashed into a ruined overpass. Steel beams wrapped around his body. He ripped them away. He surged forward again. He unleashed a flurry of kicks. Each strike broke the sound barrier. Beerus blocked with one hand. The god yawned. He grabbed Goten's ankle. He hurled the boy into the stratosphere. Goten gasped for air. The sky turned black. The stars became visible. Beerus appeared above him. The god brought both fists down. The blow struck Goten's chest. Goten rocketed back to Earth. He ignited the atmosphere on re-entry. A meteor trail followed him. He slammed into the ocean. Water exploded upward. A tsunami formed. Goten floated in the freezing depths. He felt his bones aching. He swam toward the surface. He broke the water. He gasped for oxygen. He flew back to the city. The ruins were quiet. Beerus waited patiently. The Hakai sphere had grown. It pulsed with a racing power. Goten landed on a broken statue. His breathing grew ragged. His golden aura began to dim. He forced the energy back out. The light flared brightly. He would not surrender. The trial of survival demanded his blood. He wiped his face. He stared directly into the eyes of destruction. Beerus raised the purple sphere. The end approached. The boy stood his ground. Goten narrowed his eyes. Sweat rolled down his cheek. The droplet vaporized against his aura. Beerus lowered the sphere. He pointed a single claw at Goten. A thin beam of purple light fired. The laser pierced Goten's left shoulder. Blood erupted from the wound. Goten screamed. He clutched his arm. He dropped to one knee. The pain burned like acid. He gritted his teeth. He forced himself back up. His legs shook. He refused to fall. Beerus frowned. The god raised his hand again. Another beam fired. It pierced Goten's right thigh. The boy collapsed. He hit the concrete hard. Dust plumed around him. He coughed up blood. The metallic taste filled his mouth. He placed his hands on the ground. He pushed. His muscles screamed. He locked his knees. He stood tall. His Super Saiyan aura flared hotter. The golden light turned jagged. Beerus narrowed his eyes. The god recognized the defiance. He floated closer. The distance closed to 5 feet. Goten threw a desperate punch. The fist stopped an inch from Beerus's nose. An invisible barrier blocked the strike. Goten pushed harder. His knuckles bled. The barrier held firm. Beerus flicked Goten's forehead. The impact shattered a distant mountain range. Goten flew backward. He tore through a collapsed shopping mall. He tumbled across the asphalt. He stopped near Goku's unconscious body. Goten looked at his father's face. Goku's gi was shredded. A deep gash crossed his chest. Goten felt a surge of adrenaline. He placed a hand over Goku's heart. It beat faintly. He looked at Vegeta. The prince breathed in shallow gasps. Goten realized his position. He was the last line of defense. There was no backup. Gohan was missing. Piccolo was gone. The burden rested entirely on him. He tightened his fists. His aura expanded. The rubble levitated around him. Rocks floated into the air. Glass shards spun in the gravity well. He looked back at Beerus. The god watched with cold disinterest. Whis remained on his spire. The angel tapped his staff. A holographic clock appeared in the air. The numbers flashed red. The timeline was deteriorating. Beerus sighed. He raised the Hakai sphere again. The purple energy illuminated the entire continent. The oceans boiled. The atmosphere warped. Goten felt his skin blistering. The heat was unbearable. He channeled his ki into his palms. He prepared a final defense. He knew the odds. He did it anyway. He would die fighting. The boy prepared to face oblivion. Beerus threw the sphere. The ball of destruction moved slowly. It devoured the air. It erased the light. Goten screamed. He fired a massive ki wave. The yellow beam collided with the purple sphere. The impact created a shockwave of silence. Sound ceased to exist. The colors inverted. The world turned black and white. Goten poured his life force into the blast. His muscles tore. His veins bulged. Blood leaked from his eyes. The yellow beam pushed back. The Hakai sphere stalled. Beerus raised an eyebrow. The god looked slightly surprised. He applied a fraction of pressure. The Hakai sphere surged forward. It consumed the yellow beam. It erased the energy. It closed the distance. Goten squeezed his eyes shut. He braced for erasure. The purple light engulfed him. The pain was absolute. It ripped at his cells. It tore at his soul. He felt himself dissolving. He heard Goku's voice in his mind. He heard his mother's laugh. He heard Trunks calling his name. He opened his eyes. The golden aura vanished. He stood in a void of purple fire. He was disappearing. His left hand faded to dust. His boots vanished. He refused to scream again. He glared at the god through the flames. Beerus watched him disintegrate. The trial was ending. The anomaly was being corrected. A spark ignited deep in Goten's chest. It was not Saiyan rage. It was human stubbornness. A silver light flickered inside the purple void. It was tiny. It was insignificant. But it existed. Beerus blinked. The gods sensed the shift. The Hakai sphere shuddered. The purple fire hesitated. Goten felt his cells stop dissolving. The erasure paused. He hung in the balance between existence and nothingness. The sky above remained shattered. The ruins below remained silent. The boy refused to fade away entirely. The purple fire dissipated. Goten dropped to the scorched earth. His boots hit the cracked asphalt. The silver spark faded from his chest. Beerus waved his hand. The Hakai energy vanished into nothingness. The god lowered himself to eye level. He held up 3 fingers. His voice echoed across the dead city. He offered exactly 3 minutes. He demanded entertainment. Failure meant instant erasure for the planet. A holographic timer appeared above Whis. The digital numbers glowed crimson. 3 minutes exactly remained on the clock. The digital clock started ticking downward. Goten coughed up a clot of dark blood. He wiped his mouth with his torn sleeve. He looked up at the floating numbers. Panic tried to seize his mind. He pushed the fear deep down. He reached into his broken core. Saiyan rage boiled inside his veins. Human adaptability cooled the fire. He merged the 2 conflicting frequencies. A bizarre sound rang out loudly. It sounded like shattering glass. A blinding white aura exploded from his body. The golden light vanished from sight. Jagged white electricity arced across his skin. The ground beneath him vaporized into dust. He did not float into the sky. He stood firmly anchored to the bedrock. Beerus narrowed his glowing golden eyes. The god crossed his arms. He waited patiently for the boy to strike. Goten vanished instantly from his position. He moved much faster than sound. He reappeared directly above the god of destruction. He swung his right leg down with maximum force. Beerus raised a purple forearm to block the kick. The white electricity flared brightly upon impact. Goten shifted his trajectory smoothly mid-swing. He spun his body on an invisible axis. He drove his left elbow forward like a missile. The strike connected with Beerus's cheek. The god's head snapped backward to the side. A massive shockwave ripped through the atmosphere. The dark clouds split into a perfect circle. Thunder boomed across the entire destroyed continent. A tiny drop of purple blood fell from Beerus's lip. The divine blood sizzled upon the broken ground. Goten landed gracefully upon a pile of rubble. His white jagged aura hummed loudly. The Z-Fighters watched in stunned disbelief. Hope flared bright inside their desperate chests. A mortal child had drawn real blood from a god. The false victory tasted amazing for a second. Goten breathed heavily through his gritted teeth. The experimental key burned his raw nerve endings. Beerus touched his bleeding bottom lip. He looked closely at the purple fluid. The ancient god stopped smiling. The atmosphere grew unspeakably heavy. Gravity multiplied by 1,000 upon the battlefield. Goten dropped hard onto his trembling knees. The white, jagged aura flickered wildly in the wind. Beerus uncrossed his arms. A dark purple aura erupted around the destroyer. This was not holding back anymore. This was unfiltered, true destruction energy. Reality splintered around them like a broken mirror. Black spatial cracks appeared in the open air. Beerus stepped forward toward the kneeling boy. He moved much faster than light. Goten did not even see the ancient god move. He only felt the devastating physical impact. A fist buried itself deep into his soft stomach. His white, jagged aura shattered instantly. The experimental Nuki died out completely. Goten's eyes rolled backward, deep into his skull. He spat a massive red arc of blood. The sheer force carried him off the broken ground. Beerus delivered a brutal spinning back kick next. The god's hard heel struck Goten's lower left ribs. The bone snapped loudly inside the boy's body. Goten launched backward, exactly like a fired shell. He tore violently through the heavy, polluted air. He crashed hard into a distant, jagged mountain. The rocky peak collapsed down on top of his body. He burst straight through the other side of the rock. He slammed hard into a second large stone mountain. The solid stone pulverized instantly into fine dust. He hit a third giant mountain with immense speed. The entire tall range crumbled down into a deep canyon. Goten lay motionless in the dusty mountain rubble. His ribs jutted awkwardly out under his pale skin. Every breath felt exactly like swallowing razor blades. He stared up blankly at the dark, ruined sky. The holographic clock flashed above the distant city ruins. 1 minute and 30 seconds remained on the timer. The digital timer was exactly half empty right now. Absolute despair flooded all of his physical senses. His experimental new power meant absolutely nothing here. Anger could not rewrite the basic laws of the universe. Beerus hovered far above the newly formed canyon. The god looked down upon him with hollow, dead eyes. Mercy did not exist anywhere in that divine gaze. Goten tried to move his broken left arm upward. His torn muscles refused to obey his brain's command. His young body was completely broken beyond repair. The fleeting hope from a minute ago turned to ash. Whis watched quietly from the tall, floating spire. The angel maintained a neutral, emotionless expression. The angels know this is the natural cosmic order. Gods destroy life. Mortals perish away. The red glowing numbers ticked down without remorse. The drumbeat of doom echoed loud in Goten's ears. Goten bit his bottom lip with his front teeth. He tasted metallic copper on his swollen tongue. He rolled painfully over onto his bruised stomach. Broken, sharp stones dug deep into his raw flesh. He placed his left hand flat on the loose dirt. His fingers dug deep into the dry, cracked soil. He pulled his heavy torso upward off the ground. Sharp agony spiked hard through his crushed chest. He clamped his jaw shut tight against the deep pain. He forced his right knee forward through the rubble. He planted his heavy boot onto a flat gray stone. He pushed himself upright on his trembling legs. He swayed back and forth in the cold, blowing wind. Blood dripped from his chin down onto his worn boots. Beerus watched the desperate struggle from up above. The god slowly lowered himself down into the canyon. He landed 10 feet away from the battered young boy. The purple dark aura still crackled around his form. The heat from the energy scorched the earth black. Goten raised his fists up into a fighting stance. His guard was entirely open. His arms shook uncontrollably from the sheer exhaustion. His vision blurred heavily from the extreme blood loss. He saw 3 fuzzy copies of the god standing there. Beerus sighed with profound disappointment. He stepped easily right into Goten's weak guard. He slapped the boy's trembling hands away with ease. He drove a hard knee up into Goten's broken ribs. Goten gasped violently for missing breath in the air. He collapsed forward onto the god of destruction. Beerus caught him roughly by his messy black hair. The god lifted him high up off the solid ground. Goten kicked his legs out in desperate, vain defense. His boots scraped uselessly against Beerus's armor. The god did not flinch at the weak physical contact. He threw Goten sideways with a casual flicking motion. Goten bounced across the uneven terrain. He rolled to a stop right at the edge of a steep cliff. He dangled precariously over the dark, endless abyss. The digital clock read 1 minute and 10 seconds. Goten tried to summon his internal key one more time. His spiritual energy reserves were completely empty now. The white, jagged lightning refused to spark back alive. The golden Super Saiyan flame refused to ignite again. He was just a helpless, weak boy once again. Goten slipped over the edge of the jagged cliff. His bloodied fingers caught the sharp stone lip. He hung suspended over the seemingly bottomless black canyon. The freezing wind howled through the deep, rocky ravine. His fractured ribs grated against each other. He pulled his chin up over the rocky ledge. Beerus floated down from the dark, stormy sky. The god landed softly on the dusty ground. His golden eyes locked onto the struggling boy. Beerus did not strike Goten again. He decided to break the Saiyan spirit entirely. The god of destruction turned his head away. He extended his arm toward the ruined city. An invisible force ripped through the distant rubble. Trunks cried out in sudden terror. The purple-haired boy flew violently through the air. He crashed onto the ground right beside Beerus. Trunks scrambled frantically onto his hands and knees. Beerus placed his foot squarely on Trunks's back. The god pressed down with crushing gravitational force. Trunks screamed in pure, blinding agony. Goten's pupils shrank to tiny black pinpricks. He hoisted his heavy torso up onto the flat stone. He reached a trembling hand toward his best friend. A purple aura flared around Beerus's boot. The heat scorched Trunks's torn blue jacket. Trunks slammed his fists against the cracked earth. He tried to push the divine weight off. His Super Saiyan aura ignited for 1 second. Beerus crushed the golden light out immediately. A loud crack echoed across the silent canyon. Trunks spat a puddle of blood onto the dirt. Goten screamed his best friend's name. His voice cracked with dry, raw desperation. He tried to stand up on his broken legs. His knees buckled underneath his own body weight. He fell hard onto his bleeding face. Dust coated his tears. He pushed his head up again. A new figure rocketed into the desolate clearing. Gohan roared with unbridled, furious anger. His ultimate form radiated a blinding white glow. He swung a massive punch at the god's head. Beerus did not even look at the older Saiyan. The god simply flicked his long purple tail. The tail whipped across Gohan's armored chest. The impact shattered Gohan's ribs instantly. The kinetic force ripped away Gohan's white aura. Gohan folded perfectly in half. He rocketed backward through the cold air. He smashed through a thick stone pillar. He tumbled into a deep blast crater. He did not move again. Piccolo materialized directly behind the destroyer god. The Namekian charged a special beam cannon. Yellow and purple energy spiraled around his fingers. Piccolo thrust his 2 fingers forward. The piercing beam shot toward Beerus's spine. Beerus tilted his head a fraction of an inch. The deadly beam missed his ear completely. Beerus backhanded the open air. A shockwave slammed into Piccolo's chest. The Namekian flew backward into the canyon wall. Falling rocks buried him alive. Goten watched the massacre from the dirt. His mind fractured under the immense psychological pressure. The absolute physical despair crushed his soul completely. He could not protect anyone. He could not save his older brother. He could not save his green mentor. Trunks whimpered softly beneath the god's heavy boot. Beerus lifted his foot off the broken boy. He kicked Trunks away like a discarded toy. Trunks rolled to a stop near the cliff edge. Goten dragged his body across the sharp stones. He left a thick trail of blood behind him. He reached Trunks's motionless body. He grabbed his friend's cold hand. Trunks did not squeeze back. Goten wept openly. Tears mixed with the dark blood on his face. Beerus walked slowly toward the unconscious Goku. The god looked down at the fallen mortal warrior. He raised his palm toward Goku's chest. A tiny sphere of Hakai energy formed. It crackled with purple, destructive lightning. Goten reached out his shattered left hand. He begged the god to stop. His voice was a pathetic, broken whisper. Beerus ignored the pleading boy entirely. The god prepared to erase Goku from existence. The concept of justice felt like a cruel joke. Goten stared at the purple sphere. Rage surged through his veins one last time. It fizzled out into pathetic nothingness. Power driven by anger was totally useless here. Love flooded his broken heart. He wanted to save his father more than anything. The love shattered against the god's absolute power. Power driven by love was far too fragile. A terrifying emptiness bloomed inside his chest. It consumed the anger. It swallowed the love. It devoured the blinding fear. The universe felt impossibly cold right now. Everything he loved was being dismantled piece by piece. The noise of the wind faded away. The crackling of the Hakai energy went completely silent. The world slowed down to a crawling pace. Goten saw a single drop of sweat fall from Goku's chin. The drop took a whole minute to hit the ground. Goten stopped trying to move his broken muscles. He stopped fighting against the unbearable gravity. He rested his chin on the cold, hard stone. He closed his eyes tightly. He accepted his own supreme physical weakness. He was just a mortal child. He could not punch a god. He could not overpower a deity. He let go of his desperate need to win. He let go of his burning desire to survive. He detached himself from the physical pain. The agony in his ribs simply ceased to register. The burning in his lungs vanished completely. He released his attachment to his family. He released his attachment to his best friend. The void embraced his consciousness completely. He sank deep into the absolute pitch blackness. There was no light inside this empty space. There was no sound in this endless ocean. He floated in the center of nothing. The clock ticked down to 0 in the real world. The red numbers flashed brightly above the battlefield. Beerus thrust his hand forward to erase Goku. The Hakai sphere left the god's palm. It traveled slowly toward Goku's unmoving chest. Goten remained deep inside his silent mental void. He felt the fabric of space bending. He felt the atoms vibrating in the dirt. He felt the exact trajectory of the Hakai sphere. He did not need his eyes to see it. He did not need his ears to hear it. The emptiness gave him total universal clarity. He breathed in the perfect silence. He exhaled the remainder of his mortal ego. His heartbeat slowed to a near stop. The blood stopped pouring from his deep wounds. His cells stopped repairing the torn muscle fibers. His physical body entered a state of perfect stasis. He belonged to the void now. The Hakai sphere touched Goku's torn orange gi. The fabric disintegrated instantly into gray ash. Purple light illuminated Goku's incredibly pale face. Goten suddenly opened his closed eyes. His irises were no longer a solid dark black. Galaxies spun beautifully inside his widened pupils. Tiny nebulas swirled within his deep, cosmic gaze. He did not blink against the harsh purple light. He did not gasp for missing air in his lungs. The silence in his mind became a vast, echoing chamber. He completely stopped fighting the universal current. He stopped trying to generate his own internal power. An awakening ignited violently within his broken core. It was born of pure, unfettered mental realization. The atmosphere violently shifted around the rocky cliff. Gravity ceased to function near his battered physical body. Loose pebbles floated upward into the dark, stormy sky. Droplets of his own red blood suspended in midair. Goten rose slowly from the deep crater. He did not contract a single torn muscle. He drifted upward exactly like a feather in a vacuum. His broken bones realigned with hollow, snapping sounds. His deep, bleeding wounds closed together seamlessly. A soft, ethereal glow radiated outward from his pale skin. His messy black hair rapidly changed its dark color. It flowed upward in a brilliant, glowing starlight hue. Silver luminescence bathed the dark, destroyed canyon. This was not the divine technique of the angels. This was not standard angelic ultra instinct. This was a completely unique biological mutation. Human empathy fused perfectly with Saiyan warrior genetics. Cosmic instinct awakened boldly in the dying timeline. Goten landed silently back onto his 2 feet. He did not disturb a single loose grain of dirt. Beerus froze entirely in his current place. The god of destruction dropped his outstretched hand. The Hakai sphere hovered mere millimeters from Goku's chest. Beerus stared intently at the newly glowing boy. The ancient deity felt a genuine physical tremor of unease. Goten emitted absolutely zero detectable ki pressure. He radiated absolutely no threatening, violent aura. He was passively absorbing the ambient frequency of the universe itself. He breathed in the beautiful, bright starlight. He exhaled pure, perfect cosmic balance. Beerus gritted his sharp white teeth. The proud god utterly hated the unfamiliar unknown. He thrust his open palm toward the floating boy. He fired a massive, furious barrage of Hakai blasts. Hundreds of purple spheres tore across the ruined battlefield. They screamed loudly through the air like falling meteors. Goten did not raise his hands to defend his body. He took a single, graceful step forward. A purple sphere passed cleanly right through his left shoulder. It did not burn his flesh or his clothing. It simply failed to exist in his currently occupied space. Goten took another slow, graceful step forward. He walked directly into the massive, destructive storm. Every single movement was a perfect mathematical equation. He tilted his head exactly 1 inch to the left. 3 Hakai blasts harmlessly bypassed his glowing face. He twisted his thin torso slightly to the right side. A dozen purple spheres harmlessly phased right through his body. He did not physically dodge the incoming attacks. He simply occupied the empty spaces between the destruction. The purple fire exploded violently against the tall canyon walls. Thick stone mountains crumbled into gray ash behind him. Goten remained completely, magically untouched. His starlight hair drifted softly in the chaotic, swirling wind. His young face held absolutely no lingering anger. His expression reflected absolute, perfect, serene calm. Beerus roared loudly in sudden, uncharacteristic frustration. The god unleashed a concentrated beam of raw destruction. The massive purple laser carved a deep trench into the earth. It completely engulfed Goten's entire physical body. The blinding light washed out the entire desolate landscape. The powerful beam died out a brief moment later. Goten still walked calmly forward through the fading smoke. The attack had bypassed his existence entirely. Beerus took a rare, hesitant step backward. The god's golden eyes widened in actual, genuine shock. Goten vanished completely from human and divine sight. He did not use standard high-speed physical movement. He folded the spatial distance between himself and the god. He reappeared directly in front of Beerus. The long distance closed instantly without any passing time. Beerus swung a desperate right hook in a panic. The god aimed directly for the boy's unprotected jaw. Goten simply wasn't there when the hard fist arrived. He stood slightly to the left of the heavy strike. The climax of the battle reached its ultimate zenith. Goten raised his glowing right hand slowly. He extended his thin fingers out flat. He gently placed his open palm directly on Beerus's chest. The initial physical impact registered at absolute zero. There was no loud, echoing collision sound. There was no immediate visible surface damage. A heartbeat of total, deafening silence passed. Then the cosmic shockwave rippled violently outward. It crossed seamlessly through 3 different dimensional planes. The physical fabric of the living world warped violently. The distant realm of the Kais shook with a sudden tremor. The heavenly domain of the angels vibrated slightly off-axis. A massive, expanding circle of white light exploded behind Beerus. The heavy atmosphere shattered completely into visible glass shards. Beerus coughed up a massive, thick spray of purple blood. The god's golden eyes bulged terribly from his skull. His invincible, divine armor cracked right down the center. The sheer kinetic force bypassed his physical durability entirely. It struck directly, forcefully at his vulnerable divine core. Beerus flew backward exactly like a fired cannonball. He tore a massive deep trench through the ruined city. He skipped violently across the boiling ocean surface. He smashed through a distant, uninhabited rocky continent. A towering mushroom cloud of dust rose into the stratosphere. Goten lowered his glowing cosmic hand. He looked quietly down at his own open palm. The starlight aura hummed softly around his fingers. He had touched a divine god without explicit permission. He had successfully breached the sacred barrier of the divine. Whis observed the impossible miracle from his floating spire. The calm angel lowered his long staff slowly. A tiny, amused smile played across his pale lips. The mortal child had successfully surpassed logical universal existence. The glowing digital clock above Whis vanished into thin air. The strict 3-minute time limit no longer mattered here. Goten turned his head slowly to the side. He gazed out peacefully over the burning, broken horizon. He waited patiently for the fallen god to return. He felt the broken planet groaning beneath his boots. The Earth's unstable core stabilized under his calming presence. The dark storm clouds overhead began to part widely. Warm sunlight pierced cleanly through the thick, unnatural smog. The golden rays illuminated his beautiful starlight hair. He looked back down at Goku's resting body. The deadly Hakai sphere near Goku had dissolved completely. Goten had erased it with a mere fleeting thought. He looked over at Trunks' battered form. His injured best friend still breathed softly on the stone. Goten felt a deep, profound inner peace. He did not need to fight for simple survival anymore. He existed outside the primitive realm of simple survival. He was a living, breathing anchor for reality itself. The distant, rocky continent erupted in a pillar of purple fire. The massive dust cloud blew away instantly in the wind. A terrifying, divine roar echoed loudly across the ocean. The sound easily boiled the water into thick, rising steam. Beerus exploded upward from the deep impact crater. The god of destruction was absolutely furiously angry. His massive divine pride was deeply, profoundly wounded. He shot across the ocean in a single millisecond. He dragged a massive, tall wake of displaced water behind him. He approached the ruined city exactly like a vengeful comet. Goten did not shift his relaxed fighting stance. He remained perfectly, completely still. He watched the purple comet approach with spinning, galactic eyes. The beautiful starlight aura pulsed once brightly. The cosmic frequency harmonized perfectly with the Earth again. The boy was truly ready to humble the high heavens. The purple comet smashed violently into the ruined shoreline. The hard impact sent a massive tidal wave crashing over the ruins. Goten easily raised a single thin finger. The massive tidal wave froze completely solid in midair. Millions of gallons of water turned to hard ice in a microsecond. Beerus shattered the thick ice wall with his face. The god burst through the frozen barrier with pure force. His face was contorted in absolute, ugly, divine fury. Thick purple veins bulged noticeably on his forehead. His golden eyes burned with unfiltered, extreme hatred. He swung a brutal two-handed hammer strike down at Goten's head. Goten casually tilted his head upward toward the sky. He easily caught both of the god's heavy wrists with one hand. The sheer, massive force of the blow traveled down Goten's arm. It exited safely out through his worn boots. The solid bedrock beneath him cracked widely open. Goten's arm did not bend a single visible millimeter. Beerus pushed down fiercely with all of his divine might. The dark purple energy flared brightly like a dying sun. Goten stared calmly into the enraged, glowing golden eyes. He released the god's heavy wrists smoothly. He gently tapped Beerus on the chin with his knuckles. The light, soft tap launched the god straight up into the air. Beerus spun wildly out of complete physical control. Goten floated effortlessly up right after him. He defied earthly gravity with terrifying, effortless grace. Beerus righted himself in the upper atmosphere. He wiped the blood from his mouth. His chest heaved with ragged breaths. His pride shattered into pieces. He unleashed a primal scream. The sound waves shattered the remaining glass in West City. The sky turned the color of blood. The clouds dissolved into crimson vapor. Beerus flared his aura to its breaking point. Purple fire engulfed the horizon. He condensed his energy into his right fist. The power threatened to crack the solar system. He dove straight down toward the glowing boy. He moved faster than any mortal could track. He looked like a dying star falling from heaven. Goten floated quietly in the red sky. He did not shift into a defensive stance. He raised his right index finger. He aimed the digit upward. Beerus struck the fingertip with all of his might. The kinetic energy died instantly upon contact. There was no explosion. There was no shockwave. The displaced air simply vanished. Silence returned to the battlefield. Beerus stared at his fist in disbelief. His arm trembled under the strain. He pushed harder against the single finger. He channeled his ki into the strike. Purple energy flared around his hand. Goten did not budge a millimeter. His face remained serene. His starlight hair drifted in the wind. His galactic eyes stared through the god. He saw the chaotic flow of divine energy. He saw the fundamental flaws in the technique. He opened his mouth to speak. His voice echoed from the stars. He told the god to rest. The cosmic tone vibrated through Beerus's bones. It carried the weight of 100 galaxies. It sounded like a choir of ancient deities. Beerus snarled like a cornered animal. He pulled his fist back. He threw a left hook at the boy's temple. Goten ducked the strike with a millimeter of clearance. He brought his boot up in a smooth arc. He tapped the back of Beerus's knee. The god's leg buckled inward. Beerus tumbled forward through the sky. He caught his balance on his hands. He spun his body in a rapid circle. He fired a Hakai blast from his mouth. Goten swatted the beam away. The energy deflected into outer space. It exploded against a wandering asteroid. The asteroid vaporized without a trace. Beerus sprang back to his feet. He launched a flurry of punches. His fists created a wall of purple light. He aimed for Goten's throat. He targeted the glowing chest. He struck at the ribs. He threw an uppercut toward the chin. He drove a knee toward the stomach. Goten deflected every incoming strike. He moved his hands in deliberate circles. He dismantled the combat rhythm piece by piece. He parried a right jab. He redirected a cross over his shoulder. He stepped past a spinning heel kick. He ducked under a clothesline strike. He swept Beerus's remaining leg out. The god flipped upside down. Beerus fired a frantic blast from his palm. Goten caught the energy ball in his bare hand. He crushed the sphere into glowing dust. He pressed his palm against Beerus's chest again. He unleashed a pulse of cosmic energy. Beerus flew backward across the sky. He skipped across the cloud layer like a stone. He skidded to a halt in the upper atmosphere. His purple aura flickered and died. His arms dropped to his sides. He gasped for oxygen. His invincible stamina was gone. His purple skin looked extremely pale. He looked down at the floating child. The boy glowed with the light of a newborn galaxy. The Z-Fighters watched the spectacle in paralysis. Vegeta had regained consciousness in the dirt. The prince stared at his rival's son in terror. He clutched his broken armor. He could not comprehend the scale of the power. It dwarfed his royal strength completely. It made the Super Saiyan blue form look useless. Goku forced his eyes open on the stone. He smiled faintly at the starlight aura. He felt the warmth radiating from his youngest son. He knew the mantle of protector had passed on. Piccolo watched from his rocky grave. The Namekian could not believe his eyes. Whis floated down from his spire. The angel landed upon a pile of rubble. He did not offer assistance to his master. He simply watched the new cosmic entity. The Kaioshins watched from their sacred realm. Elder Kai dropped his crystal ball. Shin fell to his trembling knees. The balance of creation shifted forever. Beerus lowered his head. The god closed his eyes. He dropped his fists. His shoulders slumped forward in exhaustion. He spoke with a defeated tone. He formally admitted his defeat. He surrendered the fate of the Earth. He acknowledged the birth of a supreme power. Goten nodded respectfully at the deity. He let his arm drop to his side. The humiliation of the destroyer god was complete. The crimson sky faded back to blue. The fierce battle was over. The timeline felt secure once more. Goten took a calming breath of fresh air. Then the universe screamed. A sound tore through the vacuum of space. It sounded like tearing metal. Goten snapped his head upward. Beerus opened his eyes in panic. The god recognized the unnatural frequency. Whis lost his calm smile instantly. The fabric of reality ripped open behind the moon. A black fissure split the starry sky in half. Darkness spilled out from the dimensional rift. It swallowed the lunar light. A shadowy hand reached out from the void. The fingers were made of swirling antimatter. They gripped the edges of the torn dimension. The space around the fingers boiled away. A monstrous entity stepped into the living universe. It dwarfed the size of the moon. Its body was composed entirely of dark matter. It possessed no face. It possessed no discernible shape. It was a walking absence of reality. The creature inhaled through the cosmic vacuum. It tasted the scent of Goten's mutation. The new threat eclipsed Beerus's aura entirely. The pressure cracked the Earth's crust again. The ambient light of the solar system dimmed. The surrounding planets stopped rotating. The beast locked its hollow gaze onto Earth. It hungered for the starlight energy. Goten clenched his hands into fists. His cosmic aura flared brighter against the dark. He turned his eyes toward the fractured moon. He bent his knees to prepare a jump. He launched himself into the black void. The screen cut to pitch black. How does cosmic instinct Goten scale against a being made entirely of antimatter? And can this new threat erase entire timelines faster than Xeno? Let me know your theories in the comments below.